We are going to be covering now information from Chapter 3 on Greek civilization. These lectures that I'm going to give are not exactly in the same order that you're seeing the book per se, but the subjects are covered in the book. And as I always mention, I'm going to be skipping some things, and it doesn't mean that they're insignificant. If you're interested in something you saw in the book that I don't cover and you have some questions, then please, I'm always going to mention that you should feel free to contact me and go over that. So you all know that I love maps and think they're important. And this is a map that kind of helps us give us an idea about the geography we're dealing with. And this people who are going to have some sort of common link through culture and language over a period of time to become what we think of and call Greeks. Okay? And in modern times, it doesn't look like this, but the time periods that we're going to be talking about gives us an idea of where Greek culture comes from and the stories about Greece, and hopefully it'll help kind of help you to visualize some of the things that we're talking about, or the places that are mentioned. So here, first of all, and this is going to be important when it comes to the Greek and the Persian Wars, to remember that we're heading east this way, right? Okay, Asia Minor. Now we have Ionia over here, Halicarnassus right there, Samos, Lesbos. This is very interesting. Everybody who comes from Lesbos is a lesbian. Where we get the English term lesbian to refer to women who have an erotic and romantic feelings towards women to women, is inspired by a poetess named Sappho from the island of Lesbos, who would write these really beautiful love poems to women to women, and henceforth the idea of a lesbian is being inspired by Sappho. A few years ago, I remember hearing on NPR that there were some Greek men from Lesbos that wanted to sue anybody or something on international court for they were upset that they were associated with lesbianism in the context of homosexuality, as opposed to just being from Lesbos. It was some kind of really odd thing that was just on there. But anyways, that's just a little side information on this island. And yeah, okay, we're gonna move on. So to Troy, here's the fabled Troy area, what it would be. Okay, Macedonia, and we're gonna learn more about that in Alexander, the context of Alexander the Great later on. And then we have Mount Olympus over here, also important. Here's Corinth, Mycenae, and here's Laconia. Okay, Ithaca over here. So just to kind of give you an idea, here's Athens and Marathon, right? Okay, Delos. So hopefully this will be of use to you. We're going to move on now. Okay, so just recapping very quickly, we talked about Minoan culture before and Mycenaean culture before in previous chapters. That to basically show that they are linked to the cultures that existed before what we know as Greece. So there is a lineage of history. It's kind of the way that I think we could illustrate that ancient Sumer and Acadia would become the influence on all the cultures that would invade and be a part of Mesopotamia, right? So we knew that the Assyrians and Neo-Assyrians and the Neo-Babylonians all took from the culture that was, there originally. So there appears to be something to that over here somewhat as well, if that makes any sense. So Mycenae it developed a diversified civilization. It had its own writing to compile inventories, but not literature. A legendary king named Agamemnon that's recorded in the Iliad that we've talked about. Okay, and remember the Iliad, as we mentioned, it's not clear if it's rooted in actual true history or based on something loosely from true history, but it certainly did. I mean, here's what's important. Whether it's reading the Bible the way that the ancient Israelites told the stories, or the way the Greeks write about these stories from the past, what's true is, even if these things are not based on actual history, they are just as significant to tell us how these people thought of the past and believe them to be true history. And that makes them also significant regardless. But, you know, these things could actually be based on a lot of true history too that archaeologists have still not really fully comprehended or been able to put together. In any case, we did talk about this before and all the complexities of that, okay? So from the 13th century to around 1000 BCE, groups of migrating tribes invaded Greece from the north, destroying Mycenaean culture. And then we started getting these dominant groups. They're the Aeolic in the north, the Ionic in the center, and the Doric in the south. You're not going to really have to memorize all this. Just needless to say that we're getting these groups together, these tribes that at some point are going to unify and identify under one idea of being Greek. It's not necessarily that way here just yet, okay? So I'm going to talk about the so-called Dark Ages, and I put Homer at the top, but I should point out that Homer comes at the end of this for several reasons. So one, we had a very chaotic era. It was a tribal society controlled by a ruling class. We know that, like almost every society in the world. The old major settlements were abandoned. The population dropped dramatically in numbers, and there was no written record left behind. But out of that emerges, in the 8th century, Homer's writings. And Homer, we don't know how, we don't really know much about him. It does appear that he was writing down things that came from oral traditions, and that sometimes he would write about things in a way that it's almost as if his audience, he didn't always have to make certain details to fill in the story. It's almost like he would tell the story as if everybody kind of knew the background, right? So he's important as being attributed to writing the Odyssey, the Iliad, and these stories are going to be fundamentally, like, they're going to be studied extremely in Western civilization. And I think most of us going to high school had to read these stories and or watch movies based on the Iliad and the Odyssey. And so these are important for even the way the world conceptualized ancient Greece. Okay, so out of these little tribal areas, they're going to early on make what we call states. Now, I want to remind you of this, and this is something I'm going to go over several times, is that almost all of our language in the Western world for politics is based on Greek words and concepts coming from these people around these times. But the way that the words were used then, although we base our usage of these words on the way that they were using them, are not exactly the same. So we're the United States of America. A state in America like California and Oregon is way bigger than what you would be talking about for a Greek city-state, okay, a polis, as they were called. And so within these small types of states, they developed several methods of governance over time. Monarchy, oligarchy, aristocracy, and democracy. I'm going to stop here, and then we're going to come back and really explore these forms since they're so important to our topic.